Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel, to my bookland. And today in our coffee time, I have some book recommendations for you.
It's coffee time!
So the other day I was thinking about some really good debut novels that I have read this year, and I realized that I have read so many good debut novels this year, so I thought I will make a video for you guys to let you know which ones they are. So I put together 10 books that I have read in 2019 that were debut novels and that I gave a rating of 4 coffee mugs or higher. And now these are not all 2019 releases, but they are books that I read in 2019, and there are debut novels. The first book that I read this year is The Chalk Man by C.J. Tudor, and this is her debut novel, and I gave this one 4 coffee mugs. Now I picked this one up because I love the concept, love the cover, it's fantastic, and because Stephen King said if you like my stuff you will like this one, and I can understand why. You can see some of the influence of Stephen King when you read this book, but there are differences. Obviously Stephen King is Stephen King, you know, he the king basically. That was a very good joke. So we're following the story of 12-year-olds, and you know, there are some crime that happens and it kind of marks their lives forever, and the story is jumping between the 12-year-olds and the same characters 30 years in the future. So you're kind of jumping back and forth, past and future, and it kind of unravels the story of the Chalk Man, which I thought was mysterious and eerie, and it was slightly creepy. The reason why I gave it 4 coffee mugs and not more is because the kind of plot twists or like surprising parts, I kind of expected them. They didn't like shock me too much, so that is why, but I really did enjoy this one. Then I have They Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, her debut novel. I also gave this book 4 coffee mugs, and I love how powerful and character driven the story was. We're following Star, and she's 16 years old, and one day after the party her best friend is driving her home, and they're stopped by the police, and without much of a warning the police officer shoots and kills her best friend, and she has a really hard time dealing with this. And it is a story that reminds us of who we are, what do we have to fight for. It's really empowering. I was so invested in the story, and honestly I am not a person of color, so I cannot relate to the story maybe as much as other people can, but despite of that I was so invested in the story, and that is because the character development was so good that you were feeling with her all the time, you were in her shoes, and I loved all the different characters. They were all so memorable, and I absolutely loved this book so much. Actually her second novel came out this year and I even loved it more, but this is the debut one, so this is the one that I'm here to talk to you about, and definitely if you've not picked this one up I would recommend it. With 5 coffee mugs we have Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi, an amazing debut novel, and when I finished this book I was not okay. That last 100 pages were a roller coaster for me. I absolutely loved all the characters. I thought they were so well fleshed out, and it is a fantasy with diverse characters, and I loved everything about this book. I loved everything, and I know a lot of people are like either 5 coffee mugs or I didn't like it at all, but I am one of the people that really enjoyed it. And it is about a world in which magic has been basically taken away from the people that have this gift of magic, and there is this girl that is obviously the chosen one to bring magic back, and we follow her through her journey, and it is fantastic, a fantastic fantasy story. Next, with 4 coffee mugs we have Dear Martin by Nick Stone. This is her debut novel, and I read this one for the Blackathon and absolutely loved it. It is another book that has to do with police violence, same as The Hate You Give, and we're following here 16-year-old Justice. He's doing really well at school, he's getting ready for college, but one night he's walking home and he sees his ex-girlfriend that is very drunk, and she's trying to get into her car to drive, and he doesn't want her to drive in that, you know, drunk status, because then he knows that she's gonna get into an accident, get herself killed. So while he's fighting her to get the car keys, a police officer sees him and he just handcuffs him. He just hits him in the head for no reason, because he assumes that he's trying to, you know, assault this woman without any kind of question. And so this goes to the whole neighborhood, and even though he was, you know, dismissed without any charges, people still kind of have this judgment about him. And I love how everything is being discussed at school as well, about, you know, police violence and race and all of this. And I love that there are characters that bring different perspectives, so that we touch all different perspectives in the book and not just one. I absolutely loved it. It is also a short book, so if you like these kind of stories, if you loved The Hate You Give, you're definitely gonna love this one. With 4.5 coffee mugs, we have The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo, and this is such a powerful story and sometimes tragic story about this girl who's trying to figure everything out. She is growing up in a very religious family, and that doesn't match with what her feelings are. And another special thing about this book is that it's written in verse, which makes it a very interesting reading experience as well. And I love how this addresses very important topics, makes really bold statements, and, you know, it kind of shows how it is to grow up in a very religious family when your beliefs might be somewhere else, the pains of growing up, discovering who you are. And I absolutely loved it. It is also a Hispanic character, so there were Spanish words in the book, which I absolutely love, being Spanish myself. So if you don't mind reading books in verse, I would definitely recommend you this one. With 5 very well deserved coffee mugs comes The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. And after I finished this book, I was not okay. I was left bruised, hangover, and needing more. I'm yet to find a book that is going to match this. It was fantastic, it was funny, it was sexy, it was steamy, it was everything. I loved every single page of this book, and I actually want to reread this and tap the heck out of it, because I just loved so many things of this book. We're following the story of Lucy and Joshua, and in this case we have the trope hate to lovers, and I thought it was done so well. And basically there is these 2 companies, and one day they merge together into one big company, and so Lucy and Joshua are the secretaries of the CEOs of the companies, and when they merge together they have to sit on the same room, but they cannot stand each other, they hate each other. But one day they realize, what if this hate is something else? And they kind of, you know, realize that they like each other more than they thought. And I absolutely love this. If you love adult romance, this has sex scenes, just saying. It is an adult romance book, but if you love it and you do like the trope hate to love, I mean, I love it if it's done well. You're definitely going to enjoy this one so much. Next we have How I Live Now by Meg Rossoff, another one I gave 4 coffee mugs, and this is such a heartbreaking, touching story of a 15-year-old girl that is sent from the US to England to visit her aunt and cousins because her parents think that she's acting out, and because she is showing signs of eating disorder, so they decide to send her to England to see if, you know, a holiday away from home might help her. But when she gets to England, her aunt goes on a trip, leaves her alone with her cousins, and then war breaks in the country, and it is such a heartbreaking story about also growing up and knowing that things sometimes are taken away from you at an early age, and death. You know how wars are, and this was so heartbreaking. But also disclaimer alert for eating disorder and obviously war, conflict, and death. Then we have another of my very favorite books of this year. This is 100% going to make it in best books I read in 2019, and that is the debut novel I Stopped Somewhere by T.E. Carter. If you follow my channel, you've heard me talking about this a lot, but it is just so beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. I gave this 5 coffee mugs, and I always tell people, go into it when you're in a good state of mind, because it's very sad, very tragic. It's very like, it just touches you in all the feels, and it makes you feel like like you don't have the power to stop what's happening. It's very frustrating because you know what's coming and you cannot stop it. You cannot scream at this girl and tell her to be careful. And disclaimer alert for rape and murder. So the story kind of was similar to The Lovely Bones, in the sense that when you start the book, you're being told the story from this girl. She's telling you her story of how she was killed. So you already know that she was murdered, but she's telling you her story, and it is so heartbreaking, but it is so beautifully written. This is a masterpiece, and I cannot believe this is her debut novel. It is amazing. And if you are in a good place and you would like to read this story, please do, because it is amazing. Next we have You Ask for Perfect by Laura Silverman. I gave this one 4 coffee mugs, and what I loved about this book is that it was so diverse. We're following a bisexual main character who is also Jewish. And another thing I really love about this book is that it felt so relatable. It is about school stress and pressure when it comes to going to college and doing something with your life. And we have the story here of this guy that is bisexual, and he's still kind of working things out with his sexuality, and also with being Jewish at the same time and being bisexual. And school pressure really gets to him, and he kind of pushes aside friends and family because he needs to learn. And then he it's a story about growing up and realizing what is really important in life. And I thought it was really relatable. It felt so real. I love the diversity and everything I've learned about the Jewish culture. So if you like diverse books and you have not yet checked this one out, I recommend it to you. With 4.5 coffee mugs, we have Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey Mackinston. And you expected this one, I think, in this video, because everybody has been raving about this book, and let me tell you, it is totally worth the hype. It was an amazing read, and another amazing debut novel. Like, all of these ones are debut novels and they're so good. So I really love this book. I picked it up because I saw people reading The Ark and loving it so much, and I decided to just go for it. We're following the story of 2 male characters. We're following the story of Alex, who is the first son of America, and he's bisexual. And then we have Henry, who is the Prince of Wales. And the press is always talking about how these 2 guys hate each other, and they're trying to make money out of this apparent beef that they have with each other. And so they develop this plan to make the journalist go and look for other stories. So they pretend to be best friends, Henry and Alex, only to realize that they might like each other more than they thought they did. So it is another hate to love relationship, and I absolutely loved everything about this book. It is a new adult book, so there is cursing and there is explicit sex scene in the book, just saying, in case you want to read it. And I loved everything about it. It felt so real, like the characters were experiencing everything that you would if you would be in their situation. And you have to think that these are 2 characters that are always followed by the media, because we have the son of the first female president of the United States, and then we have the Prince of Wales. So they're out in the open, and it is hard to be gay or bisexual when you're being judged like that. And as a bonus special mention, we have this book here, Draw the Line by Lauren Lean. I just read this one and absolutely loved it. I gave this one 4 coffee mugs, and we're following the story of Adrian. He's a teenager that lives in Texas. He's gay and he's still in the closet because where he lives, being gay is not really accepted, and so he's really scared to come out. And what he does in order to release all of this frustration and to put everything kind of in paper, he creates these superhero alter ego of himself and makes these web comics of this superhero that is gay. And nobody knows in school that he's the one that does this website. And it is about, you know, how he deals with his sexuality, and disclaimer in this book for homophobia and physical assault. And it kind of describes how hard it is being, you know, part of the LGBT community in Texas, and it's talks about the struggles of that and also accepting who you are. He has a couple of really good friends that were really fun to read as well, and one of the best things of this book is also that you get to see some of his work from the website, from the comics there in between pages, you know, that you can actually see what he's drawing, and it felt also very real. I loved to hear about his story, and I love to see him grow as a person as well. So if you love books that have to do with LGBT characters, I would recommend you to read this one, but please, you know, be aware that there is homophobic comments in the book while he's dealing with hate against the community. So just in case you're sensitive against that, just so you know. So these are 11 books that I read this year that I gave 4 or higher rating, that are all debut novels. Draw the Line is actually his first YA debut novel, but I decided to add it as a bonus because like I always say, I haven't seen this book much around, so I'm really pushing it out there to see what other people think about it when they read it. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and let me know down below if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts on them were, and if you have any book recommendations of books that might be similar to these ones that I loved so much, let me also know down below so I can get my hands on those as well. Thanks so much for watching. As always, you guys, I really appreciate your support. Please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Please also go ahead and follow me in Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook so that we can connect there as well. All the links to my social media are in the description box down below, and I hope to see you all in the next coffee time. Bye!